This podcast is a production of the Three Ranger Bros Studios, in association with Zio to Hero, the podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to Tiger Tales, the place you'll find stories and fanfictions written and read to you by your host, me, Tai Tiger. Today we're diving back into Power Rangers Universe 113. The very first story ever uploaded belongs in this universe, as being Power Rangers Street Foundation. This storyline takes place on the yin half of the universe, where magic and technology are at war with each other because they blame themselves for something that happened 10 years ago. So let's dive in with our storyline. In the last two chapters, Luca became the Quantum Ranger, and CJ became the White Ninja Steel Ranger, but only one of them knows about the other. Let's find out how they're going to handle this.
Welcome to Universe 113. Many tales are told here. Some you may recognize, like the Power Rangers Future Foundation. Some are new. This universe was separated into two parts, yin and yang. One is normal, the other hosts a war between technology and magic. Here we find more Ranger teams, a few Kamen Riders, and the introduction to a new level of Ranger power, known as the Apex Grid. Get ready for tales beyond any other as we dive into Power Rangers Universe 113.
Power Rangers Vengeful Vanguard, Chapter 3. Work together or fight each other. Luca and CJ stood before the main capital military base. Luca wrapped his arms around CJ and hugged her tight. Right, I'll have to be all by myself all weekend, CJ chuckled. Please, what are you talking about? You're happy you don't have to fight over the blanket now, Luca sighed. Maybe, CJ said jokingly. Luca kissed CJ long and passionately. Then he picked up his bag and headed into the base. The gate opened and the two soldiers welcomed Luca. As the gate was closing, Luca turned around and blew CJ a kiss. She pretended to catch it and stuff it in her pocket. CJ turned around and walked off. She headed back to the house. She got dressed and headed through the secret passage, and headed deep into the dark forest. She walked through the protective veil and entered the magical camp. There she found Udana, the old witch, and she walked up to CJ. CJ pulled out the White Ninja Power Star and presented it to Udana. Oh my god, where did you get that? Udana blurted. It's mine now, CJ told her, as she put the star back into her pocket. You're a ranger? Udana gasped. Yes, I am. The Silver Morphing Master gave it to me. Warned me of something coming in the next few months, CJ explained. If that's the case, looks like we finally have a ranger on our team. Perfect timing with the capital getting the Quantum Ranger, don't you think? Udana sneered. The Master also told me that I had to save the ranger and deal with monsters, CJ stated. Oh, please, you two will end up fighting each other at some point. Rangers always do, the old witch chuckled. Her words left a strange feeling in CJ's stomach. Luca walked into the room full of trainees. They all saluted as he entered. Alright guys, so, we have a training session today. It's hand-to-hand combat, but the higher-ups want me to use my ranger powers, so gear up and prepare yourselves, Luca ordered. The soldier trainees all geared up and in protective gear. They lined up one by one. Luca revealed his quantum morpher and held it to his mouth. Quantum power! He barked, and then held up his hand, and in a flash of light he morphed into the Quantum Ranger. The Quantum Ranger dropped into his fighting stance and the first trainee ran at him. He threw a fist, but the Ranger caught it and rammed the trainee's fist into his own face. Then he fell to the floor. The second one came in. Quantum Ranger leaned to one side as the trainee's punch flew past his face. Then, with a quick flick of his foot, the Quantum Ranger tripped the trainee over. The trainee dropped to the floor. The third ran at the Quantum Ranger at full force, screaming as he did. The Quantum Ranger held out his hand, and the trainee ran into his palm, his head bouncing off the sturdy hand, and he fell onto his back. The Quantum Ranger then rolled forward. As he stood, he punched one of the trainees in the stomach, knocking the wind out of him. Then finally, the last trainee ran at the Quantum Ranger, jumped up into the air with both fists ready to swing down. The trainee swung both his fists down with all his might. The Quantum Ranger caught the attack and swung the trainee overhead and slammed him into the ground with a hard thud. The Quantum Ranger stood there as all the trainees were on the floor grunting in pain, trying to stand back up. That's it for today. the Quantum Ranger muttered. The Ranger demorphed, and Luca stormed off in a huff. He did not see why he was wasting his talents on a group of trainees. The capital's sirens rang loud and repetitive, signaling a monster in the city. CJ walked into the city as the sirens started to go off. She ran towards the commotion and found a city bus-themed monster in the town square. It had metallic armor featuring intimidating headlights that glowed with negative energy. The bus's wheels were on its forearms and they were now supported big razor-sharp blades. That's it! Run! Run in fear! Run from Transitron! The monster bellowed. Hey! Over here! CJ barked. Transitron turned to CJ, who stood there ready. She held out her Power Star, and her Morpha appeared in her other hand. Power Star! Lock in! CJ called out, and she locked the star into the Morpha. Ninja! Spin! She called out, and she hit the star with her thumb, causing the star to spin. Then, in a flash of white light, she morphed into the White Ninja Steel Ranger. The White Ranger ran at Transitron, her sword in hand. She slashed the monster several times, but before she could deal a devastating attack, the bus monster's lights lit up, blinding the Ranger. The bus monster then swung its tires on its forearms, and the spinning blade slashed the Ranger several times before sparks erupted off the Ranger's suit. She landed on the ground. The monster then raised an arm ready to slash the fallen Ranger, when suddenly it was hit several times by energy blasts. Both the Ranger and the monster looked to see the Quantum Ranger aiming his Quantum Blaster, firing at the monster. Transitron stumbled backwards, the White Ninja Steel Ranger gripping her sword, and jumped to her feet, slashing the monster before back-flipping away, causing some distance. Then the White Ranger pulled out her blaster and joined the Quantum Ranger in blasting the monster. Transitron sent energy blasts from its headlights. Both the Rangers got hit. The Quantum Ranger quickly jumped to his feet and pulled the White Rangers to hers. I'll keep it distracted. Get close and deal the final blow, the Quantum Ranger ordered. The White Ranger nodded and ran off. Then the Quantum Ranger repeatedly shot the monster. Transitron tried to fire back, but the Quantum Ranger rolled to one side, dodging the attack. Then he carried on firing, making the monster distracted. The White Ranger appeared behind the monster and slashed the monster with a double slice. The monster stumbled forward, fell to the floor, and exploded, leaving the Quantum Ranger and the White Ranger victorious. The two Rangers walked up to each other. The White Ranger held out her hand and was about to thank him for help, but the Quantum Ranger grabbed the White Ranger's wrists and pulled her in close, and slammed his other fist into her stomach, then uppercut her in the face, knocking her off her feet. What is your problem? The White Ranger grunted as she climbed to her feet. The Quantum Ranger turned his back against the White Ranger. You are just a means to that monster's end. You are not an ally. You work for the magic users. Next time, you're nothing but an enemy. The Quantum Ranger snapped. Then he started to walk away. The White Ranger's blood began to boil. She pulled out her sword and ran at the Quantum Ranger. She jumped up and swung the sword down. The Quantum Ranger noticed and rolled to one side, the sword hitting the ground. He then shifted his Quantum Blaster into blade mode and ran at the White Ranger. Both the swords collided. Both Rangers then fell into a sword-fighting dance, their swords bouncing off each other multiple times. The army surrounded the two Rangers as they watched them carried on fighting. They both ended up rolling backwards, aiming their blasters and pulling the trigger. They both got hit with the other's energy blasts. Both Rangers dropped to the floor. The White Ranger leaned over and hit her watch and teleported away. The Quantum Ranger stood up and demorphed. Luca looked around, confused and rather annoyed. Someone find me that Ranger, Luca barked.
Attention all podcast enthusiasts. Get ready for a ride into the realm of imagination and fandom. I am Cosplay Dude 637, and I'm here to introduce you to the podcast that's about to redefine your listening experience. What is that podcast, you ask? Well, it is Storytime with Cosplay Dude 637, the ultimate destination for fan fiction lovers. Dive deep into the world of Shadowhunters, Sword Art Online, Kingdom Hearts, X-Men, and even My Hero Academia like never before. Immerse yourself in gripping narratives, unexpected twists, and storytelling adventures that know no bounds. I bring your favorite characters to life in a way you've never imagined. Why settle for the ordinary when you can join me on an extraordinary journey through the heart of fanfiction? Storytime with Cosplay Dude 637. It's not just a podcast, it's an experience. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platforms. Search for Storytime with Cosplay Dude 637 and embark on a storytelling adventure that will leave you craving for more. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button now.
CJ teleported into the forest. Her arm was very bruised. She managed to get into the village and stumble into a chair. Her arm felt like it was on fire. Udana came running up to her. "What on earth happened?" Udana barked. "Bus monster." "Thank Quantum Ranger," CJ muttered. "You need to pace yourself," Udana sighed. Udana got a damp cloth and pressed it on the big black bruise that was on CJ's arm. She winced in pain as the cold damp made contact. "So, Quantum Ranger is pretty good, huh?" Udana asked. "Yeah, yes," CJ sighed. She was morally confused as she loved Luca, but she just got her butt whooped by him. She contemplated on whether telling Luca the truth. Luca walked into the board meeting and the entire board looked at him, with frustration painted all over their faces. "There are 2 of you Rangers now? And you 2 fought in the middle of the city? What if you got your sorry ass beat?" one of the members barked. "I'm sorry, she struck first," Luca muttered. "That gives you no right. What if someone else got hurt?" another member barked. "I understand. I'm very sorry," Luca said, hanging his head in shame. Luca got given a lot of grief before he was able to leave the room. He walked down into the military camp and stormed into his dorm and slammed the door. He slouched on his bed, his mind now racing. He did not like the new White Ranger. She annoyed him. He sat there making a personal vow that he would destroy the new White Ninja Steel Ranger. In the land without time and space, William Cranston placed down the Quantum Ranger chess piece next to the White Ninja Steel chess piece. They were 3 squares ahead of the first row. "You'll dance some more before you're in sync," William muttered to himself. Then he walked over to the table where he just crafted 2 new chess pieces, and then returned to the chessboard. He placed them down at the first row. "And soon you'll have backup dancers, so to speak." William grinned. He placed 1 piece down, which represented the blue Zia Ranger, and then pressed the other one down, representing the red SPD Ranger. William Cranston stood there and grinned at his artwork. He headed back to the portal monitors and sat there, watching the new team of Rangers while waiting for the new arrivals. His silver morphing master approached him. "Sir, I'm about to leave," the master said. "Good. I await your return," William replied. "Of course, sir," the master said with a bow. Then the portal opened and the master walked through it. William sat there and waited, with a small evil grin on his face. And there we have it, guys. Another installment to Power Rangers Vengeful Vanguard. As you can see, things aren't looking so great for our Quantum and our White Ninja Steel Ranger. And it looks like we've got more Rangers on the go. That being said, make sure you check out the 3 Ranger Bros. Make sure you check out Nerds Free Comics, a podcast where you'll find stories written to you and read to you by Mark the Red Cornish Ranger, where he has his own Power Rangers storylines in Power Rangers Universe 20. And he also adapts comic books into audio dramas for you guys to listen to. Then check out Power Rangers Universe 19, the podcast, where you'll find Power Rangers and Kamen Rider storylines written and read to you by Cosplay Dude 637. You can find both these podcasts anywhere you can find podcasts. A big, huge shout out to our supporters, the Zero to Hero podcast and their network, the If You Give a Data podcast, the Author's Crown YouTube channel, and of course, the big help of all times. They're really supportive of the channels and they're really helpful, and when it comes to the Author's Crown, he's a big help when it comes to our other Tiger Tales YouTube channels. Yeah, we have more. Tiger Tales The Lost Stories, Tiger Tales Game Over, and Tiger Tales Mysterious Origins. The first 2, you'll find more fan fictions, or delving into different sorts of fictions that I'm a big fan of. And the Mysterious Origins is my own original storylines, so you might want to go check them out. Make sure you subscribe to them, and of course make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel so you don't miss another story. That being said, thank you for listening, and I shall see you guys real soon.